Hi, this is Doug at thewallgarden.net. You know, does all that end time, when people are talking about end times and all that theology that's wrapped up in that, does that all get kind of mushed up in your head and you can't kind of make sense of it? You know, whether they're talking about pre-tribulation or post-tribulation or premillennialism or post-millennialism. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. But often the problem is that people don't feel like these theological ideas have anything to do with our everyday Christian life. Well, some of them are kind of academic and philosophical and kind of tied indirectly to us. But this idea of premillennialism and postmillennialism does have something to do with how we live our lives. And I think the thing that kind of turns us off, at least it turns me off, you know, when you're hearing all these people become obsessed with the end times, is that it seems like they're getting all obsessed with a sensual rush of trying to figure out and speculate, because those things kind of, you know, they pique our interest. And so it becomes a sensual kind of activity that we get involved with, and you just kind of go, I don't really want to do that with my life. But when it comes to this idea of premillennialism and postmillennialism, it does have something to do with our everyday life, and so I thought I'd talk about it a little bit. Now, of course, when the term millennial is used, it's not talking about a cultural group or an age group within our culture. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about the 1,000-year reign of Christ in the end time. So this does often come up under the umbrella of end times discussions. But what it's referring to, let me say again, is the 1,000-year reign of Christ. It's mentioned in Revelation. But the pre and post part don't really have anything to do with the 1,000-year reign of Christ. What the pre and post part have to do with, it relates to the idea of the condition or the state that the world is in when Christ returns. Okay, so we might say, well, what does it look like when Christ returns for the second time and comes to the earth? So that postmillennialism will say that it's been the church's job all these centuries to fix society and make it better by whatever method, you know, the development of society into a higher and higher state of being, bringing it to a place where, you know, not just the individuals, but nations and states and the well-being of the earth kind of moves towards a utopian kind of perspective. And then when Christ comes, when he returns for the second time, that the church hands to him the world and it's fixed. You see, everything's better. And so now he returns and he reigns over this cleansed world. And so there's this idea that for a post-millennial, a person will say, well, my job is to invest myself to make the world a better place. Well, that sounds really noble and good, you see. But that definitely, if you can see this, that definitely affects a person's lifestyle and the value systems that they have in this world. A premillennial will say that the world is going to degenerate year by year by year and getting worse. It's going to be getting worse morally and ethically and even religiously. It's just going to spiral down and down and down, saying that in the end there's going to be a delusion and the society is just going to be a wreck, and everything's just going to fall apart. And so a premillennial will say that Christ returns before the world is fixed. That Christ returns with his angels, he judges the world, and then he fixes everything and makes it new. Those are two completely opposite points of view, and not only is it just theoretically theoretical conflict, but that affects how we go about our everyday life. So you can see someone is gets up in the morning, and if they're a post-millennial, they're saying, I'm going to invest myself politically, I'm going to invest myself socially, finding causes to throw myself into to make things better, because the church needs to change all of this, and everything's just going to pot, and we need to divert and lift it up and make it a better place so that it can be handed to Christ, and then he can reign. The premillennial is going to say everything's just going to pot and I can't stop it. I need to focus my attention on God and to help people as this social snowball is rolling down the hill, and I'm just going to keep at this message of pointing to Christ, you see, and have people repent and turn around, realizing that only a few are going to do that. But for the most part, society is just going to fall apart and crash, and then Christ is going to return. He will judge everything, and then he will bring a new situation. There's also amillennialism, but that the people that hold to that say that there really isn't going to be an actual 1,000-year reign of Christ. It's just symbolic, meaning that he's reigning through the church today. And so there isn't an actual time when he's going to reign for 1,000 years. So really that one doesn't even apply to our lifestyle. I suppose it does affect it, but it's much less direct. So I hope that when you can just sit back and look at these two ideas, you will see where you fit in that picture. And not only do you see where you fit, you'll understand why other people are acting the way they're acting. They're investing their lives down one road or another, depending upon how they view which is the truth. And so, these two ideas, post-millennialism and premillennialism, actually has an effect on our lives, because whichever one we look at, it's going to develop kind of a structure for how you live your life and what your value system is. And from that is going to erupt, activities that are going to be in line with one thing or another. Well, obviously, if you're watching my videos at all, you're going to see that I'm a premillennialist because I think the world is just degenerating and Christ will return and judge the whole thing and make it new. So that's where my attention is, that's where my hope is, and the activities that I put myself to is like here, whether it's in this video or in my everyday life, it's just trying to point people to Christ, to come out of that conveyor belt, that we might say, that is not just a horizontal conveyor belt, but one that is going downhill at a greater and greater pace. I have no expectations that life is going to get better, but it is going to get more difficult as one generation goes on to another. Predatory behavior is going to rise. Lawlessness will arise, delusion will arise, and it'll just get stronger and stronger. And so we as a people need to be able to wrap our heads around that and stay the course, stay alert, and cling to him as time goes on, and keeping our eyes on the day when he will return. So I encourage you to step off the world's system, to step out of the world system, and come up for air and take a breath and keep your eyes on Him.